you have everything. The job, the relationship, the apartment, the achievements, the Instagram-worthy life. But when you're alone at night, staring at the ceiling, you feel ... Nothing. Not sadness, not joy, just emptiness. And the worst part, you can't explain it to anyone. Because on paper, your life is perfect. So you smile, you post, you pretend while this void grows bigger inside you. If you've ever felt this, I need you to understand something. You're not broken, you're not ungrateful, and you're definitely not alone. What you're experiencing has a name in psychology. It's been studied by philosophers for centuries, and there's a reason why 67% of successful people report feeling this exact same emptiness. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why this happens, why traditional self-help makes it worse, and the philosophical framework that actually fills the void. This isn't another gratitude journal solution. This is the truth about human fulfillment that nobody talks about. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will change everything. Why success doesn't equal happiness. Let's start with the science. Your brain has something called the hedonic treadmill, and it's the reason why achieving your goals never feels as good as you thought it would. Here's how it works. When you set a goal, getting promoted, buying a house, finding a relationship, your brain releases dopamine. This chemical makes you feel excited, motivated, alive. But here's the problem. Dopamine isn't about having things, it's about wanting things. The moment you achieve the goal, dopamine crashes. What felt like the answer to all your problems yesterday becomes ordinary today. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, your brain's ability to normalize anything, no matter how amazing. This is why people who win the lottery return to their baseline happiness within 18 months. It's why you felt empty the week after graduation, after the promotion, after finally getting into that relationship. Your brain adapted. The excitement wore off, and you're left exactly where you started, searching for the next thing that will finally make you feel complete. The dopamine desensitization cycle, but it gets worse. Modern life has created a dopamine crisis. Social media, notifications, endless content, instant gratification. Your brain is being flooded with dopamine hits constantly. And just like any drug, your brain builds tolerance. What used to excite you, a text from a friend, a weekend trip, a good meal, barely registers anymore. You need bigger, better, more extreme experiences just to feel something. This is called dopamine desensitization. And it's why you can scroll for hours without feeling satisfied. You're chasing a high your brain can no longer produce. Research from the Journal of Happiness Studies shows that people today require 40% more positive stimulation than people did 20 years ago to feel the same level of satisfaction. You're not becoming ungrateful. Your brain is becoming numb. The achievement trap. Now let's talk about the biggest lie you've been told. That achievement leads to fulfillment. You were taught a formula. Work hard, achieve big goals, feel happy. So you did everything right. You got good grades. You landed the job. You built the life. You checked all the boxes. But nobody told you what happens after you check the boxes. Psychologists call this the arrival fallacy. The belief that reaching a goal will create lasting happiness. But study after study shows the same thing. Achievement produces a temporary spike in happiness, followed by a return to baseline within weeks. This is why CEOs experience depression at the same rates as unemployed people. Why celebrities struggle with addiction? Why the most successful people you know often seem the most miserable. External achievement cannot fill an internal void. But here's what's really happening. You're playing the wrong game entirely. Emotional numbness. as self-protection. There's one more psychological mechanism you need to understand. Emotional numbness, when life becomes overwhelming, too much stress, too many disappointments, too much pressure to be happy when you're not. Your brain shuts down emotional processing as a survival mechanism. It's called dissociation in psychology. Your emotions get muted to protect you from pain. But when you numb the pain, you also numb the joy. This is why you can't cry at movies anymore. Why achievements feel hollow. Why even good moments feel distant, like you're watching your life through a screen. You're not depressed in the clinical sense. You're disconnected, and the more you try to force happiness, the more disconnected you become. The external validation addiction. Now let's talk about why self-improvement hasn't worked. You've tried everything. Morning routines, meditation apps, gratitude journals, productivity systems. You've consumed hundreds of hours of content about how to be happy, but you still feel empty. Why? Because most self-improvement teaches you to optimize your external life, get better habits, achieve bigger goals, build a better version of yourself. But optimization without purpose is just distraction. You're rearranging furniture in an empty house and wondering why it still feels hollow. Here's the trap. Every time you chase external validation, likes, promotions, compliments, achievements, you're training your brain that happiness comes from outside you, and the more you get, the more you need. It's an addiction cycle. You post something and wait for likes. You work for the promotion to feel valued. You buy things to feel successful. You achieve to prove you're enough. But enough is a moving target when your worth is tied to external metrics. The comparison culture. Social media has created a new level of emptiness. Comparison-induced inadequacy. You're not just comparing your life to your neighbors anymore. You're comparing it to the highlight reels of millions of people simultaneously. And here's the psychological damage. Your brain treats social comparison as reality. When you see someone's vacation photos, your brain doesn't think that's a curated moment. It thinks their life is better than mine. Research from the American Journal of Epidemiology shows that people who spend more than 2 hours daily on social media are 2.7 times more likely to experience depression and emptiness. You're measuring your behind the scenes against everyone else's highlight reel, and you're losing a game that was rigged from the start. The just be grateful trap. Here's the self-improvement advice that makes everything worse. Just be grateful for what you have. This sounds wise, but it's actually gaslighting. When you feel empty, despite having everything, being told to just be grateful sends a message. Your feelings are invalid. You should feel differently than you do. So you add guilt on top of emptiness. Now you're empty and ashamed for being empty. Gratitude doesn't work when you're using it to avoid the real question. Why doesn't any of this matter to me? The problem isn't that you're ungrateful. The problem is that you're achieving things that don't align with what actually gives you meaning. The productivity purposed confusion. Finally, let's address the biggest self-improvement mistake. Confusing productivity with purpose. You've optimized your calendar. You track your habits. You measure everything. You're incredibly productive. But productivity is just doing more. Purpose is doing what matters. You can be extremely efficient at living a life that doesn't fulfill you. This is why you can have a perfect routine and still feel empty. You've organized your life around achieving things that ultimately don't matter to you. The question isn't how can I do more? It's why am I doing any of this? Viktor Frankl and the Will to Meaning. Now we move beyond psychology and self-help into the realm of philosophy, because this is ultimately a philosophical problem. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, observed something profound. People can endure almost any suffering if they have a reason. He wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost anyhow. Your emptiness isn't because your life is hard. It's because your life lacks a why. You've spent years building the how, the job, the relationship, the lifestyle, but you never asked why any of it matters." Frankl's central insight: meaning cannot be found in pleasure, success, or comfort. Meaning comes from three sources: creative work contributing something unique to the world, love and connection, deep relationships with others, suffering transformed, choosing your response to unavoidable pain. Notice what's missing from that list: achievement, status, wealth, pleasure. These things are fine, but they're not sources of meaning. And when you mistake them for meaning, you end up exactly where you are, now successful and empty. Existentialism. You must create your own meaning. Jean-Paul Sartre said something that sounds terrifying but is actually liberating. Existence precedes essence. Translation: you're not born with a predetermined purpose. There's no instruction manual for your life. You exist first, then you create your essence through your choices. This is why you feel empty. You've been waiting for life to give you meaning. You've been following the script society handed you: school, career, relationship, house, retirement. But that script was written for someone else's life, not yours. Existentialist philosophy teaches that emptiness isn't a problem to fix. It's the starting point of authentic living. The emptiness is your soul telling you, this isn't it. You're living someone else's values. Camus took this further. He said life is absurd. There's no inherent meaning to any of it, but that doesn't mean life is meaningless. It means you're free to create whatever meaning you want. You feel empty because you haven't yet decided what matters to you. You've been busy achieving what matters to others. Stoicism: internal versus external goods. The Stoic philosophers made a crucial distinction 2,000 years ago that explains your emptiness perfectly. They divided everything into two categories: external goods, wealth, status, achievement, pleasure. Other people's opinions: internal goods, virtue, wisdom, integrity, purpose, character. Here's the Stoic insight: external goods are preferred indifference. It's fine to have them, but they cannot make you fulfilled because you don't fully control them. You can work hard and not get promoted. You can be kind and still be rejected. You can do everything right and still lose. But internal goods, those are entirely within your control. You can always choose integrity over convenience. You can always pursue wisdom. You can always act according to your values. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote in his journal, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." You feel empty because you've been chasing external goods, things you can lose, things dependent on others, things that never satisfy for long. The solution isn't to achieve more. It's to shift your focus to internal goods who you're becoming, not what you're accumulating. Aristotle's Eudaimonia, human flourishing. Aristotle asked a better question than, "How can I be happy?" He asked, "What does it mean to live well as a human being?" His answer was Eudaimonia, usually translated as happiness, but better understood as human flourishing or living in accordance with your highest capacities. Here's the key. Aristotle distinguished between hedonic pleasure, temporary, external, and eudaimonic fulfillment, lasting, internal. Hedonic pleasure: buying something, getting likes, winning a game, eudaimonic fulfillment. Mastering a skill, helping others, living your values. You've been chasing hedonic pleasure and wondering why it doesn't last. Because it's not supposed to. Eudaimonia comes from using your unique capacities in service of something meaningful, not just doing what feels good, but doing what makes you grow. This is why you feel empty after binge watching, but fulfilled after having a deep conversation. Why scrolling drains you, but creating energizes you. Your soul knows the difference between pleasure and meaning. The examined life. Socrates' warning. Socrates sighed the unexamined life is not worth living. But here's what he meant. If you never stop to ask what your life is for, you'll spend it chasing things that don't matter. You feel empty because you've been living on autopilot, following the path laid out by society, parents, culture, never stopping to ask if it's your path. The examined life requires courage. It means questioning everything. Do I actually want this career? Or am I just afraid to change? Do I value this relationship? Or am I just comfortable? Am I pursuing this goal because it matters to me, or because it impresses others? Most people never ask these questions. They're too busy, too distracted, too afraid of the answers. But you can't fix emptiness without examining what's causing it. Creating meaning. The philosophical solution. So here's the philosophical framework for filling the void. Accept the absurd Camus. Life has no inherent meaning, and that's okay. Choose your why, Frankl. Meaning is created through contribution. Focus on internal good, Stoics. What you control is all that matters. Pursue Eudaimonia, Aristotle. Flourish by using your capacities. Examine your life, Socrates. Question everything regularly. This is the examined life. Not just living, but living intentionally according to values you've consciously chosen. Conclusion. So here's the truth about emptiness. It's not a problem, it's a message. It's your authentic self telling you that the life you're living isn't aligned with who you actually are. Psychology explains why achievement doesn't work. Self-improvement shows what traps to avoid. But philosophy gives you the framework for what actually matters. You don't need to achieve more. You need to mean more. Stop chasing happiness. Start creating meaning. Stop optimizing your life. Start examining it. Stop living for external validation. Start living for internal integrity. This is how you fill the void, not by adding more to your life, but by aligning your life with your values. If this resonated, watch my video on why smart people are unhappy. It connects directly to what we covered today. And if you want to understand the psychology of happiness deeper, check out my video on the real science behind lasting happiness. Subscribe for weekly deep dives into psychology, self-improvement, and philosophy that actually change your life. The emptiness you feel isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a more authentic one. I'll see you in the next video.